House Republicans serving subpoenas to former FBI Director James Comey and former Attorney General Loretta Lynch. They have been called to testify in closed-door sessions at the beginning of December over their handling of the Hillary Clinton email investigation and the origin of the Russia probe. All this as they get ready to hand over control of oversight to Democrats in the new year. Here to discuss is our political panel, Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State under President Obama and President of Washington Strategy Group. Also, Dan Palmer, a former advisor to Senator Ted Cruz during the 2016 presidential primaries, and he is a GOP financier and contributor for The Hill. Good to have you both with us.
Great to be with you, Ethel.
Thank you. Dan, I'll start with you on this. Given what's already in the public square, on the record, is there anything left for the House Judiciary Committee to uncover and produce new discovery that would have legal consequences? I mean, talk about the strategy here.
Well, I think, first of all, it's a mistake to be focusing on Comey, but what they will ask him is why do they handle the Hillary Clinton investigation differently than the investigation of Donald Trump? Why did they give so many implicated parties immunity? Why did they curtail the scope and breadth of it? But the person that they really ought to be calling before Congress to testify under oath is Rod Rosenstein. He's really at the center of all of this.
What do you think about that, Joel, that they should have Mr. Rosenstein up there to testify?
Well, I think the Deputy Attorney General testifies quite often. There are many ways to get him to give witness testimony in public hearings related to the budget that will be coming up next year as well. But really, it's a bit ironic that the House Republicans, the Judiciary Committee, wants to have former Director Comey and Attorney General Lynch testify at this late hour when, frankly, their actions and Comey's actions in particular likely swung the election to President Trump back in 2016. So I'm not sure what they're going to discover now. Again, it seems to me to be an attempt to really muddy the waters before Democratic Congress comes in January and begins its investigations of the Trump administration.
And Joe, what do you say to Dan, the point that he just made that, that Hillary Clinton is not the president and Republican candidate, Mr. Donald Trump, is President Trump? So kind of what's the point here at this point?
Well, I agree with that. I mean, this past week we saw some reports about the FBI potentially being used to prosecute Hillary Clinton, that the president was seeking to have that done. That's very problematic. We live in a democracy where political opponents aren't sent to jail because they have a disagreement. So I think we need to pull back from this a bit and not make it about Hillary Clinton, the emails, this discussion ongoing. It's important to get the FBI working for all Americans, and not to be used as a political tool.
Dan, I meant to get you in there. Go ahead and give us your take.
Well, I think we have to take a step back and understand why this has taken place to begin with. There was a tremendous degree of corruption surrounding the Clinton family, mostly sheltered and camouflaged through the activities of the foundation. It was a pay-to-play, pay-for-influence network, and the people who put their thumbs on the scales to curtail the investigation into Hillary Clinton were shocked when Trump was elected. Plan A was for Hillary Clinton to be coronated. So Plan B was Comey would conduct a disinformation campaign, which is this whole Russian collusion nonsense, followed with a strategic set of leaks. And when he was fired, the very same people who were culpable and vulnerable were again exposed. And so we had Rod Rosenstein offering in a meeting of the cabinet to wear a wire and perhaps utilize as part of a 25th Amendment strategy. They finally settled on the Mueller investigation as Plan C. But Rosenstein needs to come before Congress, not to testify in one of these 5-minute alternating public hearings, but go into more depth under oath and answer the hundreds of questions that have been posed to him that he has deflected and refused to answer. He's got the answers the American public need to hear.
Representative Bob Goodlatte of Virginia, he's the House Judiciary Chairman currently. He was on Fox and Friends this morning expressing his concerns about when the Dems take over the House in January. Let's listen. We'll talk about it.
I am very concerned that Mr. Nadler, who has not done anything other than criticize this investigation since it started a little over a year ago, is not going to follow through. And it's too bad because, you know, Democrats should be just as concerned about Mr. Comey's actions in 2016, including his decision to reopen the Hillary Clinton investigation and tell the whole world a week before the election. So there's a lot for Mr. Comey to answer for, and everybody should be interested in a complete interview of him and not simply a show hearing where we don't get to the bottom of these matters.
Wrapping up here, Joel, I'll give you first crack at this, and then Dan, I'll end with you. So listen, former Director Comey is saying, okay, if you want to hear more from me, it has to be out in the public. And if, you know, his attorneys have already, you know, hinted that they would, or just said that they will fight against closed-door hearings. This, of course, will drag everything on and on and on, produce more chaos in Congress and political gridlock. I mean, kind of can't be good for either party, right? What do you say, Dan?
Well, I think that Comey is an expert testifier, and if you have one of these public hearings where each side alternates with 5 minutes, he'll use up all 5 minutes on background and context, and there won't be any ability to ask a series of probative questions that go anywhere. He knows this, and this is why he favors that forum. And the excuse he uses is that a closed-door forum would allow leaking. Well, that's rich. He's one of the most infamous leakers of all time. He basically leaked to his current attorney a series of government work product, which landed on the front page of the New York Times.
So, Dan,
I just think his credibility is shot.
I understand that. You said that Mr. Comey's credibility is shot. So, Dan, and I'll get to you, Joel. But Dan, so what do you want? Do you want people in jail? Is that the end game here?
I think that the idea is the equal application of the law. If there's been wrongdoing, it needs to be discovered and dragged out into the light of day and dealt with fairly and even-handedly, regardless of how the political chips may fall. I think the problem here is that the structure has been used to tilt things in favor of certain parties and against the interests of other parties. And I think that this is what we need to get to the bottom of, because it's really not appropriate. This is the American democracy, not a banana republic. So all that nonsense in the 2016 cycle really needs to be uncovered, examined, and culpable parties held accountable. The American people are sick of this business where the people just slink away into the night, no consequences for everybody. They rotate jobs and get big consulting contracts and make lots of money and run again or serve again. It's just a corrupt system. It needs to come to an end.
Well, I'd be happy to have a look into the 2016 leaks. That's what's happening right now with the Mueller investigation, which has had significant number of indictments and prosecutions, and be happy to see why Jim Comey essentially swung the election to Donald Trump in 2016. These are legitimate questions that should be explored, but it should be done in the light of day if it's going to be. Right now, at the last minute, the House Judiciary Panel is clearly searching for a way to frame discussions heading into the Democratic takeover of the House, where there will be a lot of hard questions of the Trump administration that up till now have not been made by the Republican Congress.
Joel Rubin, Dan Palmer, we have to leave it there. I thank you both. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.